like virtual reality, where you're like kind of like the metaverse that like Mr. Robot person is trying to create. So like I think that like that VR and how it could affect marketing, and then even AR, like augmented reality. So an example of where I've seen this is I was buying furniture for my new house, and I went on to Fantastic Furniture, and they had a thing where you could click on it and you could actually use augmented reality to have your camera, and you could see what the piece of furniture would look like in a certain spot with its height and everything against the wall. So you could actually see it physically. I mean, it was a little bit rough, but it was kind of cool because I'm like, oh, would this wardrobe go here? Or like, what's the height of it going to look like here? You could actually visually see it, put it in a location and go across. And I thought that was kind of like, it's like an interesting way, especially with furniture, where size and proportion of an area is really important. To be able to visually see it in the area was kind of cool. And it kind of made me think a lot when I was actually looking at it.
I think that's amazing because it can really personalize the user's experience. If you can tailor, like, for example, the furniture, just to get that idea, because I think that's really important when it comes to selling. I think, for example, a lot of real estate companies also do things like that, so I think the more relatable a product can be to your own environment, or if you can customize the way you see it, it's really revolutionary. I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea as well. I always think about like when it comes to these, I'm big on like privacy and just like seeing what these technology companies have access to. Like when you put on this AR goggle, is it secretly recording your home space as it's like overlaying? And it's like the paranoia in me, but I'm always just wondering, like, I think it's as a tool, it's phenomenal. Think of how many problems you could solve. Think of how many like issues with returns you could eliminate, because people could actually just like understand what they're purchasing. But I do think that it's important that I was reading this study that companies don't just jump too far ahead in building new technology and implementing new technology without making sure that they protect people and make sure that like no one's going to be affected by like anything that they're like putting out there.
But even on the jumping too far ahead, like there's obviously the consumer protection side of things, which I certainly agree with. But a lot of companies I feel like are jumping too far ahead where the technology is like 20 or 30 years away and they're trying to make it happen now. Like, like look at Facebook turning into Meta, right? And they're trying to go into the metaverse. The metaverse is a whiles away. Like it's going to be a while before we're not doing stuff on Zoom, that we've got our goggles on and we're meeting around a boardroom. Do you know what I mean? In a person, or even like virtual reality shopping, where people put goggles on and they go into a shopping store and you actually walk down virtual aisles, pick virtual food, and then that virtually gets delivered, and then it gets delivered to you. Like, I feel like that to become a thing, like more people need to have access to VR. The technology needs to progress, and it needs to become a lot more mainstream. And I understand these companies trying to get ahead of it. They're trying to become like, you know what I mean, trying to be the first in this category and trying to get it out there, which I think is going to be really good investment. But I feel like some of them are sacrificing what they should be focusing on right now for something that's a bit too far in the future. And I think they're trying to make it a now thing rather than like just a future thing. So
is there any concern? I just think about in terms of the future and like the next generation and how things are developing. Is there a concern about like a loss of human connection? Because say, for example, as this sort of technology, this virtual reality technology develops, are we at risk of losing human interaction? So say, for example, you know, how the world is moving to, you know, virtual offices. We all work remotely. What does that mean for the future generation? Is it necessarily a good thing to have? Do you know what I mean?
I think the idea is to actually bridge that gap. Because right now, like say we talk on Slack and we're through our huddles, we don't really get to see each other a lot. Do you know what I mean? We're just sort of on a phone call. Zoom's sort of the next level to that, where we're actually visually seeing and we can connect. You can see people's like emotion and stuff like that. But when the idea of VR, like when it actually comes up, is that you're trying to get VR to be just like another step further than just doing a Zoom call to that more human experience where we are both next to each other and we're both doing things. So it's never going to get, well, it will one day, but it could be like 100 years away. But where it's going to hopefully just be that a little closer to becoming more personalized. and becoming a bit more connected, because I think we are going to be in an online world no matter what we do. You know what I mean? It's just not going to change.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about, like, I know that these companies are jumping ahead into the future to try and, like, you know, plan for it. So when we all eventually catch up, you know, they'll be prepared. But I wonder what you think about, like, things like digital real estate, or like purchasing things in the metaverse to
like the NFT,
own them, because eventually if we're going to be living there hypothetically, and all the big companies have bought all the land, do we then now start replicating? Like, how do we feel? I feel like there was this one that was really interesting to me, that a lot of companies were going into the metaverse and purchasing like domain names, user handles, certain types of clothing that they were, like, some people are developing so that you can, like, people can buy like little tokens of like outfits. What do you think about like future proofing yourself?
I mean, I don't know if I'm a little bit old school with my opinion on this. I think to a certain extent, all this sort of developments, you know, it's exciting, and I think there's a lot that can be done. But then I also worry about, like, I'm also holding on to the way we currently do, like, live our lives. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like a catch-22. Like, on the one hand, it seems really amazing, and then the other hand, it's like, oh, but, you know, are we going to lose human contact? Like, what does this mean for our children? And yeah, that's just what I think. I don't know.
Yeah, it could come around, like, if because you kind of see it now. So there was this massive push towards e-commerce, and e-commerce has still got heaps to grow into it, but a lot of e-commerce businesses now are starting retail stores. Like, even Amazon is starting up more actual physical retail stores, because there is a certain human element of wanting to have connection, go into a physical space. And there's something that virtual places can't replicate that very easily. So I think it's like, online is convenience, right? Yes. We're doing this because it's convenient. But I think that there is a certain aspect of it that we will lose from it. And I think it is starting to take that swing where everyone's like, I'm only buying stuff from online, to then going, actually, I want to go back into physical stores. Do you know what I mean? I want to feel the fabric. I want to do this. I want to do that. So I think it'll sort of swing both ways.
And I think as well, just thinking about the psychology of being a human being, and you know, how we grow. So, and this is obviously thinking about children as they're growing up. Like, let's say, for example, with this virtual reality, if one day children can have education from home in this virtual reality, like, for me, I think it's such an important part of human development to have that contact. Do you know what I mean? Like, it actually helps our brains develop. So I don't know. I think contextually, like, in certain scenarios, it may that, you know, this sort of progress is good, and then in other areas we can't afford to really lose that human connection.
I feel like I'm excited about it for the potential for new, like, work opportunities. For example, like, if you're a designer and you've, like, gotten a bit tired of, like, designing physical clothing, you can start creating, like, digital assets. That's really cool. And, like, diversifying your income. I don't know if you can monetize that right now, because, like, who really has access to these meta spaces? It's probably the team at Facebook. That's like,
it's actually there's 100, I think it was 150,000 people or something. I might be wrong on that number of monthly active users in the metaverse, like in Facebook's metaverse. So it's actually it's not like crazy, but it's actually a lot bigger than I thought. I was thinking,
it's like, a lot more than I thought.
Like 3 design engineers in there, but no, it's actually like a fair few. So, but I think they're actually owning assets within these locations and actually doing it. I mean, it's already happens now, right? So people buy cosmetics in games. So they play a virtual game and you buy cosmetic. That is basically a virtual asset that you're owning that is just purely there for aesthetic look, or it has some thing. So I think gaming is really what leads a lot of it. If you look at the metaverse or anything, it usually goes like, let's take the online internet space. Like, we're conversing here. It started with people on like forums and stuff like that. But then once the technology caught up, it went straight to games. And now people want to talk over playing a game or do something, having fun. Same with VR and AR. It starts with like AR, or when it started with Pokemon Go, right? With people doing stuff with Pokemon and playing a game. And then VR, it's like there's all these virtual games, like bloody the sword one where you have like Beat Saber and stuff like that. We throw things around. It starts with them. People want to play it because they're enthusiasts, and then it sort of goes up the bell curve to the more mainstream where it comes things like we're talking about like work and creating. Because wouldn't it be cool if we had like our own like virtual meta space, like where we could just literally chuck on a set of goggles and we could literally be in a room together. Do you know what I mean? And so we're working on designing something. We could be walking around a design building or doing like clothing tests. We could actually have something physical in this meta world that we can then play with and change things really quickly. I think it's definitely going to be the future. But it's so cool. Yeah, it's going to be scary how it all plays out. But I think it is going to be the future of where we all end up.